Start streaming. Okay, I believe we are live and streaming. Okay, turn down your volume. I believe we are live. This is a new setup. So welcome to the Moto 13.1 release and Kitestring release. And somebody on chat tell me something is happening. Okay, here we go, Matt says. So I think we're about 30 seconds behind on the stream. So I'm just going to go and assume somebody in chat's going to tell me this is completely messed up if it's not working. Just so we know, Google removed support for Hangouts in the YouTube stream, which is how we do these sort of group chats, and doesn't tell anybody until you actually try to do one. So thanks, Google. So does anybody want to do Google Stadia, the whole gaming thing, if they just like turn it off in the middle of the night, decide they don't want to do it anymore? I mean, come on, like what is going on? Okay, so
it messed us up yesterday as well.
Oh my God!
Caught a lot of people by surprise, unfortunately.
Yeah, so Matt or Mearsbergen or somebody in chat tell me if it's not working. But we're using OBS and we're capturing my screen and we've got Hangouts here, non-YouTube Hangouts, and hopefully this is working. We've got Shane from Foundry, senior product manager there. Rich, oops, Shane says hi. Shane stuck in what, Oregon? Where do you this morning?
Yeah, I'm in Portland right now. Not stuck, but I'm enjoying the beautiful sunny day in Portland.
I was gonna say I don't believe you because I see sunlight, so that cannot possibly be Portland. Okay.
Yeah.
We got Rich Hurry, Master Rigger, and he is down in LA, handling the launch of Kitestream, which we're going to be talking a lot about today. So Rich is available. Michael McCarthy is a new person to this stream, but a veteran of the industry, and he's been you've been over at Foundry for a couple months now?
Yes, sir. Thanks. Good to be with everybody.
All right. Where are you at, Michael?
I'm out of Boston.
Boston.
North of Boston, yep.
Nice. So we got the East Coast covered, and so we're going to go back to Michael in a minute just to talk a little bit about him, so people can get to know him. Matt Cox, of course, hanging out across the Atlantic with his. So is that an elliptical or a straight up, or is that a bike behind you?
It's a great place to hang clothes.
So I was going to say that is a clothes hanger. So Patrick's telling us sound and video are working. Bitrate is low. I think that's just what we're stuck with because we've got the whole Hangout bit in and out going, plus the live streaming. So I think we just have that. So I guess we're just stuck with that bitrate. Sorry, guys. Greg Brown, Moto product manager, product designer.
No, product designer.
Designer.
Yeah,
we're
right. Designers now because we care that much about our users. That's
in the creative side.
That's right.
Managing.
Rich is too annoying. We need more people to field his annoyance.
That's right.
Yeah. Rich calls too often.
Somebody can manage Rich. Let Greg do the designing. Somebody else can do that managing. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think we're going here, and so a couple of things we want to accomplish. And just first off, I want to say this, just so you know. Sometimes I get some feedback from these. This is just a chat and a Q&A. So I want to take a lot of questions from the chat window here, and it's just a chance to sort of meet and get to know the people behind the scenes in Moto development and Kitestring, and some of the community members that we are part of Pixel Fondue and Foundry and Moto and the associated programs. And it's the type of thing you could play, watch live or play later while you're working and modeling, something to listen to. If you want to watch new feature videos, I've put in links in the description, also in the chat, and of course on the Pixel Fondue. When this is up there, there'll be links to the Moto Geeks Vimeo page with some like 30 videos or something with 13.1 features. We'll talk about them a little bit, but we're not going to do feature demonstrations on this live stream. That's not what it's about. Same thing with Kitestring. We're going to be talking about Kitestring a lot today, a new platform that Rich has been working hard on the last 6 months. And there will be all sorts of demo links we can have to that too. So just now that we have that out of the way, I just want to go over to Shane and kind of kick us off and let us know how the 13.1 development cycle went. It's probably been, a couple months since we had the beta live stream?
Maybe 2 months now? Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks. So yeah, today is official Moto 13 day. Happens to be the 13th, and it's I'm told, I just woke up a few hours ago. I've been frantically running around the city getting ready for a trade show here in Portland, but I'm told everything is live now with Moto 13.1. So if you haven't yet seen the news, be sure, as Greg said, go up there, check out the community post that Mike has likely made by now, which should be full of lots of information about the high-level features of the release, but also I think roughly 20 or 30 quick clip videos, as we've usually been doing. And then in addition to that, we have some really good release notes that you should dive into with additional details about the features and the specifics of them themselves. The big highlight of this release has been performance. Matt Cox and team set off on a venture roughly about 18 months ago, or 24 months ago, maybe almost 2 years ago. We started planning and brainstorming what are the really deep level, core level changes that needed to get done to kind of build the better Moto for the future. So we started off on that venture, and in this cycle, the main benefits is in polygon mesh display, if you will. So a lot of performance improvements were made to how animation playback is drawn to the screen, and other improvements around how events are handled throughout the core system of the application. So in general, we're hoping that users feel a more interactive, more performant Moto, more than they ever have before, but also be cognizant that this is the beginning. So when we say performance improvements, it's not all encompassing. There's going to be areas where we didn't touch. There's going to be, there's obviously things that we know we need to do going further. And Matt and team are still continuing on that path, and we'll continue to work on that probably through the majority of next year even as well. So this is just kind of the beginning, and we want to do it kind of in a safe way where we do a little bit at a time, stabilize the release, and then do a little bit more, and then stabilize the release. So that gives you kind of an idea of what we're working towards with 13.2 across the next kind of 4-month period of time here. So we'll be doing a lot more bug fixes, stabilization, and a few other features, but a lot less features and more performance and stability focus as we move into this kind of next venture of things, if you will, with Moto.
So we've got a lot of performance improvements, and we talked about this in the last live stream with the beta. And I'm just going to go over to Matt Cox real quick, who's sort of the principal architect behind Moto, if you don't already know that, and just get some feedback. Let's sort of close the loop here and see how the beta testing went, and if that was valuable in terms of helping move 13.1 to the performance forward and getting it out the door. Matt, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it was unbelievably helpful, and thank you to everyone that jumped on board with that and downloaded the beta and kind of got us, I think, just more metrics and also just more crash reports and just more data to be able to drive development internally. I think a lot of the work we've done over the last couple of weeks has been guided by knowing where the areas that needed extra polish were. So it's really good to kind of get that information. So big thanks to everyone. And I'd also say, surprise, surprise, there are going to be future versions of Moto, and we will most likely be doing something similar for those. So it's always good to get involved with the beta. So it's really helped us out over the last month since we came on here and kind of asked us some help there. So thank you to everyone.
So one of the things we did on the beta this year is I know Rich and I had. Oh, there's Rich. Rich is lagging a little bit.
Oh, sorry, I'm here.
Rich is there. So we put out some content. We put out a hammerhead shark scene and the ball man scene Rich had, and I think some of those had like over 1,000 downloads. Was that helpful, putting out scenes to the community, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. I think the more data, I mean, this sounds like a silly thing to say. The more data we can collect on these things definitely helps. And I'd say, as far as driving what the next area of work needs to be, that's definitely helped. Because I mean, looking at it now, we've made face polygons faster. and they are significantly faster, and it's brilliant. But as Shane said, there is more work to do, and we're going to continue doing that work in areas like sub-Ds and P-subs. So, sharing your data of those scenes where they're particularly slow out there on the community, so other people can test them, and we can get as much information about how different machines run with those particular test scenes, and they're great to be able to use those test scenes to validate the work we're doing as well. So it's always good to get real content from kind of people using Modo in the wild, rather than let's be honest, us engineers going, I've created a cube.
Right.
Which is
a lot of cubes.
I'm really glad that you're not just using 1,000 spheres in your scene to test speed.
Right. And so with Rich, I know Rich provided a lot of really difficult scenes in terms of pushing performance with some of the character animation stuff he's been working on, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Greg Brown, as a Moto product designer, what's it like to sort of design the future path of the program now that you have some more tools in your inbox, so to speak, in terms of improved performance and some of these arrays and things like that, some of the new features that are coming into play? Does that let you explore new areas to implement features, having these sort of architectural improvements?
Oh, I mean, without question, because I mean, you have to look at whether or not it's at all practical to implement a feature within performance, and so the work that Matt's done has been very impactful with that. And of course, we can't talk about 14, but we can say this is, of course, guiding us on what we're going to implement for future versions like 14. And
so, in terms of content, I was talking with William Vaughn about this just over in Pixel Fondue chat the other day, and putting out more content out there, more LXOs, in terms of not just doing training. And I know like Rich's Kitestring is going to have a lot of content. Have you given any thought to updating? I know it's been a while. You guys do 50 different things, but in terms of like taking community submissions and adding new content to these new versions of Moto that sort of can push these new features or show off new features.
Yeah, we were talking about that this morning. Again, our share site was awesome, and so we're talking about what we can do to make sure that content can be added, because we do have that cloud preset browser now, I think, added during the 12 series, which is hugely useful. So that is constantly a topic about how we can share more content between users and just leverage that content, of course.
Yeah, no, the cloud browser is actually really useful, and I do use that, but it's one of those things you kind of forget that you have until you like pop it up and like, oh, I need to look for some hardware, some sort of mesh item, and you can do that in the cloud browser. But you can also, it's all assets, including materials. And I noticed in 13.1, I didn't realize you guys were doing this. I didn't notice in the beta, there's a new material out there, the AVX material, correct? AVX?
AXF.
AXF. And that one, was that the one designed by the scanner, the company that scans in BRDFs?
It's X-Rite. Yes, correct.
X-Rite.
Yeah, so X-Rite. X-Rite, I guess owns I don't know if there's a patent around that or whatever, but they own that format, and we worked with them to bring that into Moto. Started early in the 13 cycle, and X-Rite is actually also owners and creators of the Pantone library, so that kind of gives you a framework around their material methodology and catalogization of them. If you will. So we'll have some content coming via AXF materials, which are very highly physically accurate scanned materials of real material swatches. That's part of what I'm here at the Material Summit here in Portland, showing some of that stuff in conjunction with X-Rite this week. But then we're looking, to expand, like Greg said, expand what we do with the share site as well. And then we're even looking to how we can more closely work with our alpha and beta customers to further, create production examples that are accessible to everyday users as well. So we're trying to change things up a little bit on how we, kind of work with our customers and work with our vendors and work with our partners to bring some of that information back to the everyday user, if you will.
Right. Okay. And so I really think materials are going to be a big deal. And this AXF, I want to get it right. Right, Greg?
Yeah. All right.
So I know this has been around for a couple of years, and it sounds like now that a major program like Moto has picked it up, it's probably going to gain some momentum. And just to explain a little bit behind that, because I think it just, the larger picture here, a BRDF is a sort of base level shading algorithm. So when you look at a surface like the sort of microstructure and the microfaceting, the BRDF gives a starting point for how rays hit and are bouncing off and calculated. And when you have a scanned material, you're actually scanning in the microstructure of a physical material, similar way to scanning in actual geometry, and you're bringing that into Moto. So you're not using the base Moto BRDF, correct? You're using, it's actually a true physically based material. So when you bring in a silk, the light should really be bouncing off that like an actual piece of silk. Is that correct, Greg?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, no, you pretty much nailed it right there. So, yeah.
Pretty much nailed it. Okay, so I see a lot more of that coming, and it seems like if that stuff coming in as cloud assets and sort of bringing that back to life, it's an interesting thought, because you're really seeing we're going to talk about a little bit, I hope, about the new renderer, the path tracer in this live stream, at least just a bit, and what you guys saw at SIGGRAPH. But I do think like materials, like scanned materials, are going to play a big part in the future of rendering. It's not just going to be about the renderer.
Well, in the same way that, the physical materials and, that whole workflow kind of changed things over the last 4 or 5 years. I agree. I think you're going to start seeing more and more scanning of those materials to represent that, again, just as a real digital twin inside of any application, not just Moto, but other applications out there as well. So it's to kind of expand upon what you were saying a little bit there. It is very similar to the principled BRDF shader model. It's a lot of these are variants of that, and what they do is they pipe in a very measured IOR, index of refraction calculation, that's based on the scanner, along with a number of other things. So it automatically scans displacement or a normal map. I think there's an AO map as part of this. All of your full shader stack of textures that are included in that scan. So it's literally as close as you can get to the actual physical material being represented in silicon in rendering.
And one of the nice things about AXF, if I can just interject really quickly, is there are multiple specs for AXF. And in 13.1, we're only supporting the initial, which is 1.0 and 1.5. There's a lot of nice workflow, niceties that make sure that if a particular effect or a channel isn't supported, that we notify you of that. But our support of the other specs are also in progress as well. So we will be continuing to support the full array of specs that are important from AXF. And one of the things that's nice about what AXF does or what the AXF format does is it also includes various options for the different types of math that are used for different effects and different types of PBR materials. And so things like blend, for instance, that could be one of the things that an artist wants to support in an AXF material. And that, of course, will be supported by whatever AXF material you download and you use.
And so there's, this is not just a Moto thing. There will be libraries of AXF materials to download or buy, I'm guessing, that can be used within Moto.
Yeah, like a car paint material, for instance, is one of the actual specs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Car paint. Everybody likes car paint. Everything looks better in car paint, right?
Exactly.
So there's a ton to talk about. I want to bring in some questions here because that's sort of the point of this. But before I do that, and we also have a lot to talk about with Rich, so we've got to save a lot of time there as well. But I did want to talk to Michael McCarthy a little bit because he's new to a lot of people around here. And just a quick background, and I know you've been in the 3D industry a long time, but you may not be that familiar to the Moto crowd. So maybe give us the elevator pitch on Michael's life in 3D over the last however many your professional life, how you wound up at the Foundry, and what you're doing over there.
Sure. Well, thanks. I'm really excited to work with the Moto community, and so I've been doing 3D animation as an artist and as a designer and trainer for quite some time. And kind of started a little bit as a generalist, but I've kind of gone off and focused in different areas, particles and animation, modeling, and done a wealth of different things. And, I work together with Shane pretty closely. And so I was really pleased to be able to come on to the Moto team and do, design here. And the stuff that I'm seeing is, and being able to contribute to is super exciting. One other thing that I wanted to say about AXF is, it's really great because it's this full photorealistic material that you get in, but it's not black boxed. So, I mean, it's scanned, it's nice, it's photorealistic, but if you need to tweak it in some ways, you're able to do that too, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I really do think that's going to be a big part of rendering. And again, I know getting into questions in a second, but I got to ask about SIGGRAPH a little bit, and we got to get a little bit about the path tracer, and how that's going to be eventually integrated into Moto. Sort of, people. This is the main thing people are interested in, Shane. So let's maybe from SIGGRAPH, I think from a Moto standpoint, there's a lot of people asking about it. So I know you can't tell everything, but maybe give us a little more info, if you could, on the path tracer and how this integrates into your sort of plans for rendering as we move on to 2020 and beyond.
Sure. So for a little while now, Alan's been working on what is truly a complete rewrite of the existing Moto renderer, and it is a path trace based renderer instead of a ray trace renderer like what we've traditionally had inside there. And because of that shift in things, it's enabled us to a couple of key advantages. One is greatly simplify the render settings. Path trace renderer is a lot easier to just dial in. There's a lot fewer settings to deal with and comprehend with. It is a lot easier for us to accelerate with GPU hardware or really high numbers of CPU cores as well. So there's lots of really cool technology coming to market from the hardware standpoint. So we want to make sure that whatever we do going forward is best capable to leverage both sides of that fence. So it is a true hybrid renderer. It will leverage both in parallel with each other. So the renders that we were showing at SIGGRAPH renders simultaneously on the CPU and GPU. It takes different parts of the calculation and separates them to each areas of that hardware. And then we were able to plug in the Optics RTX library to further take advantage of that hardware. So in particular, the secondary rays that are bounced around in the scene are accelerated their calculations through the RTX library, which is really, really blazingly fast. So overall, we're kind of a mixed pipeline right now between CPU and GPU. The difference in them, the difference between that and something like Radeon Pro Render is Radeon Pro Render is all GPU. It could be all CPU. It could be all GPU. It could be a little bit of mix. But our shader pipeline inside of Moto is inherently kind of CPU constructed. So the shader compilation that occurs under the hood and all that is really CPU bound. So having the approach that Alan took with the new path tracer enables a lot more of just the standard Moto set of things, lights, materials, and everything else to work by default with the new path tracer, where we've had to do a lot of translation of things and customization of things and exposure of things in the API to get the RPR renderer to work. So we're continuing both because they both are good to improve the core of Moto in different ways. And I think there's a different type of use case for each type of renderer that's available out there, and more options is, in my opinion, never necessarily a bad thing either. So it isn't pinned to a release right now. We are, getting along with it pretty well right now. But I can't come to this presentation or anything else really right now and commit to a release on it. We want to make sure that it's ready to go and done right. I've seen some messages or posts on the forums that we kind of overextended ourselves a little bit with kind of the hype machine, if you will, around RPR. We are being a little bit sensitive to that, but we want to make sure that it's really usable and ready to go when we put it out there.
Is this something that's going to show up in a beta first, like Radeon Pro Render?
Yeah, absolutely. So my intent is hopefully within a month or two. I mean, that's the only kind of time commitment I can give is we'll get it out there in some type of a beta build capacity to those that are active Moto maintenance or subscription customers.
So one of the nice things about a path tracer, like you mentioned, if you use something like Octane, there's just far fewer settings. And so you can sort of take your focus off settings. You can just kind of crank up raise or whatever and focus on your image. And it's nice to know that this is going to be available for people with GPUs as well as if you still have a CPU dominant system. Typically when you're buying a system today or building a system, you almost have to make a decision by going sort of CPU compute or GPU compute. Where am I putting my money? Do I get a fast 4-core, 8-core system with two 2080 Ti's, or do I get a blazing Threadripper and just one, 1080 or something like that? So it sounds like you're covering a number of bases here. So Moto users who maybe haven't made a GPU leap aren't going to be left out in the cold. But you also have an interesting thing where you can make use of code that's already there, and that if you use a GPU system like Octane or V-Ray, you'll notice there's a bit of a delay before the image comes up. I'm guessing that's the translation of all the material stack and everything else going over to the GPU card, right? And so you're doing this.
It's mainly the allocation of the buffer that's needed, the render buffer, the place to put all that information. As we render, we do a lot of that shader calculation during the actual rendering process itself.
So a question people may have, and again, I don't know if you can answer this yet, but one of the considerations when moving to GPU is how much you spend on a card in terms of memory. Like, do you it's not just speed, there's a memory constraint often to GPU rendering as well. If you're using the Moto upcoming path tracer, is there some sort of way to switch between system memory and GPU memory, or are you always going to be constrained by GPU memory?
I mean, some of that's it's a little hard for me to comment on right now. It's a little undetermined, right? So I couldn't give you buying information or guidance really right now today. It's still very early. But what I will say is one of the unique things that we've done with the Path Tracer is it's not a full screen progressive style kind of interactive render like you would see with the preview render or like what you see with RPR or Octane or others that are out there that are kind of path tracers. You see the whole screen, pixelate and fill in more and more detail, right? Moto's path tracer is still a bucket style renderer. So each bucket is going to, render, and then it's going to keep going over multiple times over those buckets around the entirety of the image. That gives us a little bit more economy with the memory usage. It also gives us a little bit more scale when it comes to resolution capabilities, and that's one of the things that the original Moto renderer was really well known for is being able to render really, really super large resolution images like 20K and bigger because of how it handles and manages those render buffers at the bucket level.
Oh, that's really interesting. It sounds like maybe you would be able to use like a mapped textures or something like that, like you would with Moto or V-Ray or something like that. Now, when you have a scene with a massive amount of textures in it, and if you're just doing buckets, it can just see which textures are involved in the bucket and grab what resolution is in there. I'm guessing there's probably something like
it's going to grab the data needed for that bucket. If you're doing a lot of reflective materials, mirrors and things like glass and things like that, you're going to gather a lot of information for that particular bucket. So there is, one of the things to tune with this render is the size of the bucket. Sometimes it's actually more performant with a larger size bucket because then it gets you a little bit closer actually to what a normal, progressive renderer would actually be doing with a larger chunk of data. But that's going to require more memory. So if you have the memory, then you can do larger buckets, and it might be faster to kick the render out. So that's a little bit of the kind of the wiggle room that you have, or niggling with the settings there. I think it's a little too early for me to comment exactly what those requirements are. By and large, what we see in any hardware produced in the last year or so has lots of plenty of memory and RAM. So I think you're going to have a pretty capable system to throw just about any file at this.
Yeah, and Greg or Michael, if you want to jump in, I'm guessing you guys have sort of used it as designers, artists, and have played around with the new renderer. Is there something just from a sort of user standpoint, like that you're excited about to show the Moto people once it comes out?
Yeah, I mean, just less tuning. I mean, I know Moto's legacy renderer, and that's an advantage knowing that renderer, but you really do have to know really how to tune a nice render. And with the path tracer, you don't have to. There's like, I think, 7 settings total. And this being an Allen renderer, of course, there's a lot of optimizations in it. One of the ones that's nice is, quality is really controlled entirely by anti-aliasing now, and there's a minimum and maximum number of samples. And so if you set the minimum number, say, at 8 samples and the highest number at 64, it'll go through filling in buckets on top of each other and basically detecting whether or not the previous bucket actually achieved enough samples for that area. And if it did, then it's going to go ahead and skip over it. And this does also allow you with the bucket renderer to get a very quick look at your render early on, and also save having to refine as it goes and refines further and further. So lots of clever little enhancements in it.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, one of the exciting things is our ability, moving to a path tracer to get more data out in that single render without having to spend extra time in render passes. So, something like the AOVs that, will be possible, and we won't have to wait a huge amount of time to get that. So, kind of coupled with what Shane was saying, which I think is a really interesting approach to having a bucket renderer that's kind of progressive. If you can get those large, image sizes for print or for wherever you're going with it, and not have to render over and over to get the things that you're going to layer in Photoshop or wherever you're doing your compositing, I mean, that's a really nice option to have.
Yeah, I saw that was pointed out in the LinkedIn article, Shane, that AOVs. So we're talking about AOVs. If you're not a render geek, that means you can get all kinds of different passes from lighting or materials or normals or ambient occlusion or mattes or whatever from the renderer. And typically when you set up a bunch of different render passes in the CPU renderer or other renderers that aren't path tracers, there's some extra calculations that are going on. But with the path tracer, it sounds like you're getting that for free almost.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep forgetting that, because that's one of the main reasons that kind of started us down that venture, was because of the colorway workflow itself. When we render a colorway file, there's a lot of various different passes that are generated to do all the really fast tweaks that you need to do inside a colorway for changing materials and colors on an already rendered kind of very physically accurate image. And that's kind of why, at least in my opinion, why things like Arnold and other renderers that are path trace based have been picking up more and more in film production as well, because you kind of get a lot more of this information, for the same cost of the render process. It costs you a little bit more, but it's really minor, and you can get a lot more pass information out of that one render than you ever could before. And that enables, in the compositing workflow, a lot more scalability of what you can do with the image and modifying it and adjusting it and tweaking it post-render.
So if you don't know what Colorway is another Foundry product that a lot of product designers use. And so if you're rendering out something like a new portable air conditioner, and you can spit out a bunch of different AOVs with your render, and then in something like Colorway, and I'm guessing like Dimitri Holub is mentioning here, like possibly multi-light, some things like this, you can go into a much faster sort of interface that's designed for iterating through different versions, like Colorway, where you can test different lighting and change the colors really quickly without re-rendering. All these different AOVs provide you the flexibility, since you're breaking your render down into different components, quickly changing the colors and then adding that back, adding the specular reflection, everything back in, and it does it in interactive speed. So what you're saying essentially is this new render is going to dovetail really nicely with some of these other products that you guys have. Probably Nuke. I'm guessing there'll probably be some nice importing features there.
Both directions, yeah. The compositing workflow with the path trace renderer just becomes, really, really enriched. Passes per lights become, essentially free. I mean, there's milliseconds, there's increased file size and things like that to deal with, but it's a lot easier to do with. And a lot of that is done with what's called light path expressions. So these are expressions that a more technical artist can actually write to create their own type of a path that they need. And that's something that's, again, much more at the advanced side of compositing workflows, and that'll be something that'll be enabled with the path tracer as we move forward.
Yeah, Alex, who's a nuke expert, who's in Pixel Fondue, was really excited about the light path expressions and being able to like just pump in just a little expression to get whatever sort of variables he wants out of there, knowing that he's going to want to make use of those later on in Nuke. And it'd be interesting to see how Colorway goes with this as well. So I just one more question on the renderer, then we can move on, because I just know a lot of people are interested in this. You know, in the current version of Moto, you have your bucket renderer, your sort of final rendering, but you also have this interactive preview renderer. Are we going to have something similar to preview with the path tracer as well, or is that simply going to be F9?
That's the big chunk of work that we're working on right now, post SIGGRAPH, is actually connecting the path tracer up to the new PView, which was created as part of the Radeon Pro Render project that we released earlier this year. It has a new interactive render window, if you will. And so we're hooking the path tracer up to that, and then we'll continue to build out PView as well. So PView will become more and more feature enriched, hopefully solve a lot of the existing problems and bugs that we have with the render window. And then, over the long arc of things, years down the road, the preview render and the legacy Moto render itself, which we'll probably just end up calling those the default renders, keeping preview as preview, and call the existing Moto render the default render for now. Those will eventually be phased out, I imagine, in the product, but we won't do that until everything's fully capable with the new renderer, and everything that we want there in the new render window is also there as well before we start eliminating things.
Okay, and so if you're just joining us, we've talked a little bit about the new renderer in Moto and some of the improvements in 13.1 performance-wise. And we've got Rich Hurry here. We're going to move on to Kitestring and what that is, and the Rigging Master Course 3 in just a minute here. I want to do some rapid-fire sort of questions at Greg and Michael and Shane here and Matt and from the community, just really quickly, if that's okay. And we'll just kind of go quick. So this comes up a lot, Shane. High DPI support. What people ask.
Still working on it. It's a big problem.
Big problem. Not harder than it sounds, I'm guessing, to solve.
I'll let Matt add any color to that.
Matt's just...
So we're working on it. We're working on it. The big things that need to be done, we're transitioning from Qt4 to Qt5. That's undergoing kind of work right now, as well as just updating all the artwork and user interface. But it is something that's very much in our radar. We have...
QT,
we have Top Man working on it.
Yeah,
Top Man. So QT being your API for the interface. Okay, is it an API? Okay. Okay. So working on it. High DPI coming. So there's been
that's another one that it has so many dependencies that we have to do it carefully. I understand the pain point of it, but that's a really big project. As many know, we've been working on it for a really long time already. But we think we have the right path forward, and we're checking the boxes off on that path now, kind of for the first time. We've been in prototype mode for a while and figuring things out, but now we're executing on a plan. So that's at least the new news and the good news with that.
You have a plan and you're executing. So that's good news. Yeah. There's been a number of questions on here about dynamics. I'm going to try to roll it up into one, but I'm going to add my own little thing there. So there's a number of questions asking about improvements to dynamics, if there's anything coming. A lot of people always are interested in fluid and smoke. Those are things that are really eye-catching when you see a Houdini demo reel or something like that. And my thought, the way I'm thinking about it is, you guys opened up the rendering in Moto to accept third-party renders. You've got Octane, you've got V-Ray, you've got RPR, you've got now a couple of different Moto native renderers coming. In the vein of adding dynamics type features to Moto, is there any, and this may be a Matt question, is there any method towards opening up the API or the plugin architecture of Moto to allow or encourage more sort of third-party dynamics?
So I would say there's no initiative undergoing, mainly because it's already as open as it probably can be. So I don't know, this is probably not well known within the community, but all of the dynamics implementation we have in there right now, the entirety of the particle system, it's all done as a plugin. So there's nothing in our particle system or dynamic system that's kind of what you'd refer to as core code. So if somebody wanted to go and integrate a fluid sim into Modo, they can do that, and we'd be, I think, more than willing to talk to them about, which APIs you need to go through to do that and things like that. It's already got some great APIs for integrating into the simulation system, so someone should go do that.
I think Frederick had mentioned some of that. I think he had worked on tropism, which has obviously some sort of particle system in it for the growth algorithms, and I think he's on the chat here, so all you guys should start ganging up on him to get a flip or something integrated into Modo if the API handles it, because to me that just seems like maybe a more logical path. Things like fluid and smoke are very specialized things, but they're pretty mature. There's a lot of stuff out there in the ocean of software and the internet that could probably be tailored towards Modo without having sort of a dedicated Modo staff working on it. That just seems logical. Changes. Is that something you'd like to see?
I think you'll see. There's a lot of things that I got to be careful of. There's a lot of things changing within the industry on more of an openness kind of a platform that would make things like that a lot easier to do, that would be horizontal across many products. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. I think from our standpoint, it's not something that's of active development, as Matt said, but we will continue to do the things to make Moto itself more in line with that kind of methodology of an open platform.
And you would love to see a fluid and smoke third-party simulator coming into Moto, I'm guessing, right?
I think that's very, very conceivable within a couple years time ish type of a thing. But yeah, I think there's going to be more and more options for doing that type of thing, more than what Matt said himself. There's other possibilities that we could do as well to open up Moto to more than just particles and simulation type stuff.
So part of this in the Pixel Fondue community and people on the chat and watching this later, part of it's on us to support third-party developers. And I know there's been a lot of support for a lot of the Moto, and Moto, and we've all seen what's happening with plugin development, right? It used to be large kind of companies like Chaos Group making plugins. Now, the vast amount of sort of plugins, not just with Moto, for all these platforms, are just much smaller, like individuals, and it's on us to support them and to buy their products, and if we do that, you're going to see this stuff in Moto. So, buy the stuff that's out there, and we'll continue to promote it on Pixel Fondue.
Well, Michael and I remember working with Chaos Group when it was just Peter and Vlado. So all of them started at one level, and they get to be really big.
They get bigger, right? So a lot of people. Okay, so I know we could spend a lot of time on dynamics, and I see a lot of more questions in the chat. So yes, there will need to be performance updates, probably, I'm guessing, to handle a lot of this if you want to do some of this stuff. But I'm guessing some of that could be handled just with the plugin developer as well. Speaking of just open software and free software, I can't ignore these. There's lots of questions about Blender that pop up. Blender just had a big release. I don't want to get into a big Blender discussion, but maybe if I could point something at Michael or Greg in terms of just being inspired by some of the stuff you see in the Blender community. Do you ever see stuff going on over there and you think, you know what? That's pretty cool. I bet we could do something like that or better in Moto. Do you see stuff like that?
We definitely pay attention to the other products that are out there, and Blender is definitely impressive. Some of the stuff they've done is really amazing. But it's one of those things. It's kind of hard to talk about because it's always in context. We do pay attention to them, and there's no reason to shoot down the stuff that they've done, and it definitely plays a role in the decisions we make as far as the features we add.
Absolutely. So it's something that I think people are aware of. It's hard not to be aware of Blender now, but it's inspiring, and you can see some of these things they're doing, and maybe showing up in Moto as a little more polished workflow implementations. I do want to talk a little bit about where Moto is moving in terms of the bigger picture. We know Moto's had a lot of success in the design space over the last couple of years, Shane, and I expect to see that continuing, especially with some of the new features like the new material system you're having in here, the new renderer, some of the improvements to mesh fusion. But there's also a really big space in gaming and some of the improvements in performance and some of the stuff we're going to see from Rich in just a second here. And some of the other things we're seeing coming up, like the new auto character setup that Lucas is working on. It seems like there's a lot of game-oriented or game-capable features and sort of platform benefits from increased speed. So is that a focus, Greg or Shane? You want to talk to that, or Michael?
Well, I think one of the kind of the cool things about the SIGGRAPH event, which the videos from that will be redistributed or posted live here within hopefully this week or next week, and so everybody will be able to enjoy those. But one of the things that came to my realization is, Moto is known as being a really solid modeler, really competent modeler, but modeling is more than just polygonal modeling. So we saw aspects of that from Warren Marshall and what he showed, kind of more of his evolution of going from edge loop modeling to all the way down into mesh fusion style modeling, and
this is Warren Marshall. Warren Marshall, a game content creator that's worked on a lot of big games. He's been on Pixel Fondue before, but he has a fantastic Discord, I think, channel for Moto.
And then to tee it up for Rich, Rich's big methodology is rigging as modeling, and he approaches rigging in a very kind of modeler methodology as well. And then to tie it all back together, we had Nike on stage to show what they're doing with Moto and how they're leveraging really complex rigs and animation systems and deformer systems to create new physical models, new shoes that are actually, turned over and produced in real life. So it really is, that's one of the key strengths of Moto. So it may seem a little bit confused or unclear in how we're bouncing around with strategy, but our core competency is modeling. It is asset creation, design creation. We're going to continue to invest in that, very heavily as we move forward. And then on the other end of that, it's how you communicate that idea and that design. So you're seeing us invest a lot in rendering on the back end of that, and how that design or that idea is either translated via to pixels through renderers, or translated to engine, which is then communicated to pixels. So all of these industries overlap, very, very significantly. So the things that we're doing from a design content creation standpoint appeal to the Nikes of the world. They appeal to the Epic Games of the world as well. Even if you go as low as retopology workflows and optimization of mesh, it's still very horizontal across those industries. So those are all types of things that we're going to continue to invest in and make sure Moto kind of maintains its edge as being the best out there for modeling and content creation workflows.
So I saw Rich perk up. So one more question, Rich. We're going to Kitestring. One more.
I'm trying to be good.
One more. I know he's going to explode. He's like, I've been working on this.
He's really texted me 15 times during this call already.
Yeah. So I just want to hit one more because we've had some questions, and maybe Greg, you can speak to this. Moto Indy has to be a part of this equation, and there's a lot of I think Substance Painter in particular has shown that the indie developer is an important part of the community, an important probably part of the future of Moto. And so how does Moto Indie and game development go hand in hand, and are we going to see just some more stuff, communication, samples, community interactivity on the indie aspect of Moto and game development?
That is definitely a question for Shane. I'm really not involved very much on the indie side these days anymore.
We're going back to Shane.
I thought I was going to get an escape, out of the conversation today.
I'm having to commit.
You are literally having the sun shining on you right now. So
I know.
So there's Moto Indie people out there asking questions in the chat. So
on one standpoint, I definitely hope to see us produce more marketing collateral and content around games and games workflow. If you have ideas or you want to help us with that, please come forward. We recently did an article with Tor Frick that went out to 3D World, and I think it was in this month's or next month's publication of that. We're looking to do more and more of that type of stuff as well, to publicize how Moto is used in games, because it's used quite a lot. And then Moto Indie itself, we've consciously decided to change the cycle of that product to be only updated at the end of the series. So once we get to 13.2, we'll spin out, at least the plan is at this moment, is to spin out another version of Moto Indie based on 13.2.
Okay.
So you'll see that update more annually at the end of the cycle.
Okay.
Approach.
Okay, so that's Moto Indie, and I think one of the things we maybe can do with games is maybe we'll do like a gaming roundtable, like a Pixel Fondue, and get some of the actual game artists on here and talk about why they use Moto in the game development, and something like that. So let's move on to Kitestring and Rigging Master Course 3, because this is a big day for Rich and a big day for the Moto community, and I'm going to let Rich explain what Kitestring Online is and how that relates to the Rigging Master Course 3 and how they're sort of intertwined, and how Kitestring is also intertwined with Moto. So, Rich, I'm going to give you the mic.
Okay, I'm allowed to talk now, right? I'm sitting here being quiet, being good.
You are allowed to talk. You are unmuted, unleashed, unchained.
It's muted. So I'll start with when I left Pixar last September. I started thinking about the things that I wanted to do, and updating the rigging course was kind of one of the first ideas I had, and actually reached out to Shane, Mike Jensen first. It's like, hey, so I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And just kind of talking with everybody. And in that, I had this idea of, I kind of wanted to take the educational idea that we started with the original master course and turn it into a platform. So not just make an update and add more videos, but really create a learning system that takes advantage of all the things we learned about how we taught before, and a bunch of stuff over the last 15 years of work that I've been doing at the studio level, and creating a system that was really, designed by artists for artists that are actually trying to get work done, right? That was sort of my goal. So Kitestring is the result of that, is creating a platform for education. I'm starting with putting my content into this thing first, but the eventual goal is for it to be much broader, to deal with other disciplines and bring in other artists, but with this idea of breaking the information down into ways that's easy to access, right? So broad, big picture is that. And then, I kind of started on this journey, and when I did, I started, this is when Greg and Shane and everybody started, and Matt started just like coming in and bugging. It's like, all right, so I'm trying to do this thing. And I got to say, it has been really, really great working with the Foundry and with these guys to get it where it needed to be for me to deploy the rigs that I have deployed. So in that, when we started talking, Shane was talking about how they really wanted to have tooltip videos in Moto, so that you could click on a button and then get the small video that described what that function did. And, part of the core idea of the platform is that you break all of the ideas into these little chunks, and then you expand upwards. So this tool and this idea is related to these other ideas above it. So I was like, well, I'm already going to be doing these. Why don't we work together? And the videos that I'm going to produce, I'll make sure that I work with you and how you need them to be. But why don't we just have those be embedded in Moto, so people can go and then see this, and then also have access or discover all the other content that we have on Kitestring. So it really was a partnership. Like it was sort of, it all started with, hey, I'm thinking about this thing, and hey, that would be great, and what do you think about this? And it just sort of organically came through that conversation, to where now if you download 13.1 and F1, and if I've created a tooltip video for that, it'll literally go and open up a browser, and you'll get to watch that video on Kitestring.
So Kitestring is, like you said, a platform, and the best way to think about it, at least for me to think about it, is something similar to Pluralsight or Lynda, where it's a platform for training, and it's quite sophisticated. I was really impressed by it when you showed me, in the way that you can interlink different aspects of training. And so I just want to be clear, we're talking about a couple of different things. Rigging Master Course is a comprehensive, Rigging Master Course 3 is a comprehensive training and a combination of training and real-world assets, Moto scene files of all sorts of different facial rigs and things like that, that's going to be available. Kitestring is a training platform, and how they sort of come together. I was talking to you earlier. For those of you old enough to remember, it's a little bit like a Half-Life 2, right? So we're all waiting for Half-Life 2 because Half-Life was so great. But when we bought Half-Life, we just went and bought a box with a disc in it. And then, Steam came out, and it was like, okay, what's the Steam thing? I want to play Half-Life 2. And it was the only thing on there. And so we get on Steam, and we download it, and it was a little bit different because you're downloading software, and you're getting Half-Life 2. So Kitestring, in this case, it was kind of like Stream, and the Rigging Master Course is 3. So Rigging Master Course 3 is sort of like Half-Life 2. But there's going to be more games. There's going to be a lot more training on Kitestream. But right now, it's not just Rigging Master Course 3. You also put 1 and 2 up there as well, correct?
Right. Well, yeah. Well, let's start with this. So when I started on this path, there's the development of the site, right, which we just talked about. And I'm working with a company. I'm actually in LA right now. Corona, technically, which is in LA. That I partnered with, and they really allowed me to be able to focus. Right. This is my full-time job now, and they enabled that. They've led up the development effort through my designs and their own ideas to create the platform. Right. So that's that. So what Rigging Master Course 3 is, I was like, there's a couple of competing things that I wanted to do. First thing was, before, when I was at Pixar, I didn't feel comfortable really talking about character rigging stuff. That was what I was doing in my day job, and I wanted to be careful and respectful. And when I embarked on my own, it's like, okay, now I'm going to basically start from scratch, and I'm going to build rigs the way I want to build them, and I want to use Moto as my canvas, because Moto's deformation system is the only one, to my knowledge, commercially, that works in this way. So this is like, okay, I've got this gigantic Rigging Master Course 1 and 2 content that I'm going to bring to the table. I have all this training I want to do for teaching people about characters and how to think about shapes and how to do, I'm starting with this face. But before I could get to the training, I needed to build the rigs. And this is where the partnership aspect of working with the Foundry has really been key. My rigs wouldn't be possible without 13.1 and all the work that the Foundry has done. There's just it would not have happened. So them going, okay, what do you need, Rich? I'm showing them. And that whole week, at the beginning of the conversation, when Matt was talking about beta testing and content, I'm living proof that this makes a huge difference, because I actually was able to show what I wanted to do and why. And they adjusted and tweaked and made things work so that these rigs could come to life the way they could. So I know I'm rambling a little bit, but the idea is I focused on the rigs and the assets first, and the training second, and all, because it's a platform like where we are. I literally flipped the switch. It went live last night at 1 a.m. I was really trying to make it happen on the 12th, but it happened on the 13th, depending on what time zone. Maybe if I was in Hawaii, it would have been the 12th. But the core thrust is you get all the original content, so 64 hours of material, and most of it is relevant. Almost all of it is relevant to current day Moto. So, because the way that originally was structured wasn't just about what feature does what, but really how to think and how to take these tools and put them together in an intelligent way. So all that content's there. It's all interleaved and interlinked. And then I outlined everything that's going to happen in Rigging Master Course 3 from an educational standpoint. And I've done about maybe 20% of the video for Master Course 3 is in there, but all of the assets are. All the rigs, all the helper presets, everything that you would need, and everything that I built while I was creating these rigs are now available. So the second you get an account, you can download all those assets, including that full face rig, and start working. And over the next, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I just want to be clear. So Rigging Master Course 3 is not just training videos. It's a huge amount of LXO files and assemblies. I mean, do you want to like give us a little brief on, like, if you were to go get Rigging Master Course 3? Also, are there files with Rigging Master Course 1 and 2, or are those just videos?
No. There's all the sample files. There are even some presets from early on. So yeah, yes, you get all of that. There's maybe 50 or 60 sample. Yeah. Yeah. So there is a huge amount of assets, just a huge amount of rigs, and from all 3 Rigging Master Courses that you get.
and then those are all LXO files you're downloading and having on your computer.
Absolutely.
And then the actual videos training are going to be on Kitestring.
That's right. And because of the way the system was designed, it's all interlinked, right? So if you look at, say, the spline effector video to learn how to use that tool, you will see related videos and files that use the spline effector. So it'll help you too if you're like learning about, I teach about how the mouth works, building the mask up, sliding the mouth corner, dealing with the fleshiness of a face. And spline effector is a big part of how that works in Moto, and it's a big part of the assembly. So as you're learning about that, you can actually dig down and go, okay, I want to see the pieces that I've used to put together and learn about them. But you also get to see all the file associations that are there too. So it's really cool stuff. And I'll be doing some demos about Kitestring itself here in the next couple of weeks. But it's really to make it easy to find all that. And it was an assets first release this time. And that's a big thing. It's like when you buy this account, what you're getting are production level face rigs that you can use instantly.
Yeah, I think that's really...
Now, I'm going to teach you how to use them. There's a lot of education involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a delay.
Oh, it's all right. So I did take a look at Kitestring earlier, and Rich showed it to me, and I was really impressed by a couple of things. One, it's gonna be a lot different than what we have at Pixel Fondue, which is really just a pretty random collection of training videos, either quick clips from William or little things by me or other community members. It's not structured; it's just kind of whatever pops up there, and it's nice to go and visit. Kitestring is a structured training system, so you can step through a series of master courses. And what Rich is saying is, not only are you able to step through this progression of training courses. Anything you go to, if I go look at the, like you said, if I want to get a video on the spline effector in Moto, which needs a video because that one's kind of hard to wrap your head around, it'll actually show there's this interlinking system where other videos that have anything to do with the spline effector will show up sort of automatically, and you're ready to click on them if you want to go deeper or see how the spline effector is related to facial rigging or whatever else. So and also you have access to assets. So in YouTube, I'm not going to go download a scene file for the spline effector, but on Kitestring, not only can you see a video of the spline effector and a bunch of related videos to the spline effector, you can download scene files, example scenes with the spline effector.
Absolutely. No, and that's the whole idea.
That's what's really needed for this industry, and that's what makes this, really tailored for our industry and specific for it. So I want all of the Moto users out there to understand that we're listening. We're listening to all the feedback about how hard it is to find good quality content. And yeah, this was one of those conversations as part of listening to that community feedback that started off between myself and Rich and even William. We looked at what these guys were doing or are about to do, and how can we bring that more directly to the user in the product in a more accessible way. And then it's a journey, as Rich has been describing. It's not just starting with that quick clip, but there's a whole bunch of other things that you could learn about how to use that feature in a real workflow and a variety of workflows. So it's a really complex, deep thing to put together. But I equally was a bit surprised and really impressed with how Kitestring was capable of communicating all those different parallel streams of information all in one place.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of work, and it's going to get better. And if you look at the site, if you go to kitestringonline.com, you'll see it says Kitestring Beta. And that's because I look at the next, honestly, if we're being really honest, the next year is going to be refinement and getting feedback and tweaking it. It's not a drop and I'm walking out. This is my full-time job now. So getting the system to be better, getting the training to be better, and also bringing on other artists is a big part of that. And you brought up William. In the next couple of months, all of his Vaughn in 60 Seconds videos will all be on Kitestring, and they will be interleaved and tagged and connected to everything else in the system. So that means if you're looking for something that he's got training on, you'll be able to go and find it and then see how that is connected to everything else in the system, and vice versa. So if I'm talking about something and William has a video that's related to it, it will show up and related, and you can learn from it. So this philosophy of search versus discovery is actually a big idea, because they're two different things.
Yeah.
When you're searching for something, you know kind of what you want. Discovery is you're not totally sure even what's out there.
You don't know what it's called even. You know?
Yeah. So knowing that, oh, I saw this effect. Oh, here are things that are related to it. I didn't even know what effectors were. I have no idea what a weight container was. You didn't even know to ask the question. But it shows what's related as your entry point, and then you go from there. And there's a lot of other little innovations that we're building into it, like chapter markers, indexing into a video. I mean, in YouTube, you can send a link that jumps to a point in time, but on Kitestring, every point in time can be listed as a marker, and each marker can have its own tagging, its own data, its own files. So as you search, you can literally find the exact piece of information and type of information you want by going right to that time step and consuming it. Eventually, this year, you're going to be able to build a collection, a class that is not just whole videos, but markers. So you can say this 5-minute part of this video start here, and then this 10 minutes add there, and stack them together. So a student or an enthusiast can go through and literally get the best information over what could be literally 30 hours of real material, and bring that down into 20 minutes of everything you want to learn. So yeah, it's designed for us.
Yeah, that's the really kind of crazy thing and most impressive thing about it. And so, to reiterate what Rich is saying is, one of the things we had a problem with on Pixel Fondue, which we just kind of gave up on, is we just couldn't really categorize our videos. And it's just the platform we were using, Squarespace, doesn't allow for that. So what Rich has done is he's built this, partnered with some developers and built Kitestring from the ground up. And so what he's saying is, not only can, if you're watching, go to one of Rich's training videos, and he's talking about rigging an eyelid, and part of that video, there's something about weight containers. Well, William Vaughn maybe did a video on weight containers that was really concise in 60 seconds. That'll be linked right there. If you want to quickly watch a William Vaughn video just to refresh your brain about a weight container is, while you've got Rich's more in-depth training right there, you can do that. Not only can you just watch the video, you can watch just that 15-second part of the video. And furthermore, as all this stuff is being indexed and tagged and coming online, people who go through these sort of training courses, like if I want to learn how to rig a robot, I can probably just gather up all the various bits of videos and training and parts of videos that help me create that robot, and just put it out there as your sort of, here's a stack of videos for all of you guys who want to do a robot. Here's everything you need. And
eventually there'll be user playlists, exactly what you're saying. So you'll be able to create and cherry pick what you think would be something that others would learn from that content. And if you're a Kitestring subscriber, you'll literally be able to then look at these and follow these things along. So yeah, that is in the roadmap. I wasn't going to announce it, but since you brought it up, I'll say it.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, so you tell me, do you want to talk about, I'm interested in your facial rigs. I'm interested in some of the Rigging Master Course 1 and 2 stuff I want to get. So
it's all there.
So it's all there. So if I want these files, do you want to talk about how I can get those?
Sure. So we should say, when you create an account on Kitestring, you get access to all of my original work and all the new work I'm going to do, right? So it is a yearly subscription. In the first 30 days, we're giving a big discount, 20% off to anybody that wants to come on. And I should say this, if you're an original Rigging Master Course owner, you can verify on the site. Ask your owner, you'll fill out a thing, and then once we verify, you'll send it, you'll get a 50% off the first year. And as soon as you do that, you're going to get everything that's coming. So that means all of the files that I have already done are available for you the second you log in. So that means if you want to download the face rig, the Voltron face rig, and download it, you have that. That literally, if you really want to look at that face rig alone is 15 years of my experience and 6 months of hard work wrapped up into a 30 meg file. It's kind of right. It's
pretty sad. Really cool.
Yeah. So now, what's cool about these assets and these files is that I've also given you just the mouth rig, and just the nose rig, and just the teeth rig, and just the tongue rig, and all of the little pieces that have come together. And then each of those rigs, I built little assemblies that helped me do that. For instance, the tongue rig is a freaking science project, but To use it, all you need to do is literally drop your tongue geometry in, grab all the points on the tongue, and add it to one weight container, and it just works. So I've taken the technology, the tech out of it, and made it very, very easy for you to use. And then go and say, okay, how did he do that? And then I show the different multi-brand rigs that I built, the other little pieces, and all those are little assemblies that you can use. So I basically built this library of tools that I put together to create these rigs, and I took these rigs and then put them together into the face rig. So, and all of that is available the second you get your account. So you can download everything and start playing with it tomorrow. And this kind of dovetails into the mindset that I was trying to build. And I'm, I'm a rigger, right? So I think this way, but there are actually two parts to the rigging process. There's the technology, building the tech, making the tools work so that you can rig something. Then there's applying that tech and making beautiful shapes. And I think that rigging is an art. And I say rigging, talking to the Nike guys at SIGGRAPH, they're riggers. Like Bo and I, we were high-fiving and hugging over beers. It's like, we're both riggers, dudes. It's like they're doing the exact same thing, using the exact same tools, but they're targeting designers where I'm targeting animators. But it's really the same process. But that idea of saying, I'm going to create these little tools and then I'm going to make pretty shapes out of it. Sometimes we get lost. A lot of times people are like, rigging is a means to an end. Rigging is too hard. I just want to model and I want to animate. So if I could take all of that and wrap up them in these presets, and that's something that Moto does really great, wrapping up an idea into a preset that you can just double click and drag into your scene. Assemblies are fantastic. So now I'm going to say at first, and you'll see this on the site, the building the rigs section, those videos are coming later. Right now I'm filling out how do you use the rigs? How do you take this rig? Let's use the mouth. How do you make good shapes? How do you even think about good shapes? How do you take this rig that will work and make a beautiful character's mouth, not only in final shape, but in motion? And I'm going to teach you about all of that. And what's good is that this Moto makes it easy. Like, literally drag, drop, weight containers, morph containers, you add points in and things just work. You do not have to understand it. So that means that even if you're not a Moto person and you want to learn how to think this way, you can get Moto with these presets and in 20 minutes be moving things around. So it is really designed to take the technology away and focus more on the art of building shapes and creating characters.
Well, what's appealing to somebody like me who has some rigging experience, but may have a project come in. There's a lot of other people out there who have projects come in and they're going to need to do some animation. So you can have like a medical animation. You may need an eye rig or you may need a mouth rig in order to accomplish this. And so what you're really looking for is just like I would jump on Turbo Squid and be like, okay, I need a model of a Tesla because I need to do this animation. If I could buy these, I'm basically buying these rigs from Kitestring if I need these rigs, but I'm also coming along for the ride is everything else on Kitestring, like everything, right? I mean,
that's right. And there's in a couple of weeks I'm going to announce something else that's coming too, which you guys will appreciate. But I'm going to hold that one. That one I'm going to hold. Like we've got Brian Tyndall's work coming, right? That'll be part of the subscription.
So that's just going to show up. So if I just to reiterate, like I need an eye rig next week, I can go buy your RMC3, which comes with all these rigs, including an eye rig. Yeah. And then I also can log into Kitestring and learn how to use it, learn how it was made, learn how to make my own, all the stuff that comes with it.
Absolutely.
But also, Brian Tyndall's work is a former Pixar TD. Is that correct? Was Tyndall a Pixar?
Absolutely. So yeah. Brian, oh yeah, dude, he was there for years, and he was one of my mentors. So a lot of what I'm building in these rigs and these thought processes, he taught me. And he created a book called The Art of Moving Points, which is much more theory. So if I give you a brow rig and teach you how to use it, he teaches you why it all works and how all of he really thinks about it almost from a mathematical standpoint. If you've got a vertex here and you've got competing things moving, how do you make all of these pieces flow together to create good shapes? So his stuff is much more high level. My stuff is very practical. And you get this great path from understanding theory all the way to practically getting your work done. And he and I were talking. He started his own business. He left a couple of years ago, and he was just itching to get back into the business, and like not into the business, but like rigging again and characters. He was getting the itch. And when I showed him these rigs, he was like, "Okay, let's what can we do together?" I was like, "Well, let's take this content you have, this gigantic resource that he's had, that's only been available as an iBook, and let's make it part of Kitestring, and let me go in and do the work of indexing and cataloging so it flows into the system and is related as well. And that's just going to be part of the subscription. So if you have a Kitestring subscription, you're going to get all of his content, and then you're going to get all of William Vaughn's content. And I'm going to be building a body rig. So right now I've got a face rig, but by the end of the year, you're going to be able to download a whole complete character rig off Kitestring. Doesn't cost you any more money. That's part of the value proposition. Jason Bickerstaff, he left Pixar when I did. He's an amazing sculptor. We're going to be talking about form and shape and topology. His stuff's going to be on there. August Davies, animator. They work at Sony, the PlayStation Group, and there's already a video up there of us embarking on what I call the anim buddy relationship. It's an animator getting a rig and a rigger working with them to bring something to life. That negotiation of shapes and language and working together, that's a series that's going to go on for the next couple of months. And every so often there'll be a new video, and you're going to get to watch that process live. They're also going to be building an animation toolkit that will be part of Kitestring. So not only will they teach us kind of foundational production level like animation tricks and tips and techniques, but an actual library of facial expressions and poses that will be part of Kitestring that will work with my rigs. So you're going to get all this. It's all coming, and it's just Well,
I think that's yeah. I think that's an important way to think about this. Is one, you're not just getting Brian Tyndall's book. It's going to be indexed and integrated with the rest of the training. So you have that interlinked training like you talked about. So you can be watching a video on facial rigging, and you may have a methodology link to Tyndall's work there as well, just right there on your Kitestring page. So it's accessible. It's not just going to be some separate download link for an ebook. It's all indexed. It's brought in into the flow of this training system. The other aspect that I want to emphasize, because I love training videos, but I'm really interested in assets. Like, I need a full body rig. I need this type of stuff I need on a basis of getting work done, and this type of stuff I pay for all the time for places like Sketchfab or TurboSquid and things like that. And so you have assets there that you buy that asset basically. You know, however you want to think about it, it's like you get the asset, but all the Kitestring stuff you just have access to all of it. Like, you have access to everything that's there.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm trying to make it as no-brainer as possible, and in all transparency, it is certainly the first release of the platform and even my stuff, and I'm looking for people to come and give us input and feedback. I've already gotten a bunch of notes, and it's all great stuff. So, the assets, like you said, are instantly there, but the platform's going to evolve. Those assets are also going to evolve. Here's something, when I was showing all this stuff to Matt, and let's be honest, this face rig is kind of on a level that they'd never seen before. It really pushed Moto in ways that had never been pushed. And that's a great thing, because we learned where there were deficiencies and where things were slow. But I also learned how to make my rigs better and faster in Moto. So it was a partnership. What that means is, for instance, the lip rig. The lip rig is very slow right now, and it's mainly because how I designed it. So by getting that feedback from the Foundry, and from Matt specifically, I'm going to build a new lip rig, which is, if you're a Kitestring subscriber, Kitestring subscriber, you will get the new version of the lip rig too. So that means these assets are not one and done. I'm going to it's going to be evolving over time through input with the Foundry, with input through artists. So I'm treating this like I'm a master rigger. And if you're doing this process, you're working with tools and you're working with the talent to keep making these things better over time. So it's not only you can get an iRig that you can use, you can get a mouth rig you can use. You're going to be able to give me feedback about that iRig and about that mouth rig, and I will apply that feedback to making it better for you, that their next project you'll have something else you can use. And this is not static.
I would also say, that feeds the other way. I mean, some of the improvements that have gone into 13.1 have been based on feedback that we've got from you, Rich, and this particular rig you've been building for your training. And I mean, literally this week I've been looking at some stuff for a potential future release that could make that rig run a little bit faster. So that
Look, man, you can say it.
He has it twice as fast, Rich.
if you're learning the Rich way of rigging, we're looking at that rig. We're using it as one of our test assets, along with many others. So it is one of the things that we're constantly looking at and seeing how we can make faster. So it's definitely a two-way street between Rich and Foundry, or Kitestring and Foundry.
So I should probably say, if you do structured training, not just for Moto, but for other applications, you may want to get in contact with Rich and look at putting something on Kitestring. Rich, what's the quickest way for somebody to look at Kitestring? Do you open up the new MODO 13.1, press F1, and click on a deformer and see if it pops? And
that'll work.
So which deformer should people click on? Like,
go to the setup tab in the Moto, the setup thing. Go to deformers and just F1 click on, say, the magnet or the thing or the spline.
My favorite deformer, the magnet. So
I use the crap out of that thing.
Yeah, I know, it's great. So get on. So you can do that, and just to be clear, you don't have to pay for Kitestring to look at the Moto tooltip help. That's just there because you can see the Kitestring. First of all, the Kitestring design. The guys you are working with down in LA are freaking really good. Like I love the design of it. I'm really kind of jealous of it. It looks awesome.
Well, let me give them some love. So, Plain Joe Studios and Storyland Studios is the group that I'm working with, and I'm actually employed by them, right? So it's like I came to them with this idea, and we started the Kitestring business, and they have done nothing but kick butt as far as not only taking a chance on this idea and doing this, but really buying into the vision of a training platform that's plastic and malleable that we can use all over. But their design group is fantastic. And Kai Houston is the lead programmer. He and I have been working literally late nights. I think I've slept 4 hours in the last 2 days because we were trying to get this thing launched. And he was right alongside me. So he's sort of the master designer and architect of the site. And then Plain Joe is a design studio, as also a lot of the color and a lot of the look, the logo is all them. So I just wanted to give them some love. They have done an amazing job with this.
So if I want to get my hands on Rigging Master Course 1, 2, and 3 right now, what do I do?
So you go to the front page. So if you just go to kitestringonline.com, you can see there's a get started or sign up now, and you can click that and it'll bring you to an option where you can pay for a subscription. And there are 2 subscriptions. There's personal and commercial. And I did this way. It's like, so the personal license is designed for students, for individuals that want to have access to these things. And it's sort of designed to be non-commercial. The idea is you use these rigs, but you're not using them for paying work. I'm not chasing anybody. Everybody's getting all access to the rigs. The reason it was designed this way was that for a business like you, Greg, if you bought the commercial version, then I can offer you more support. It is honestly more about filtering out enthusiast from professional so that I can make sure that I'm servicing you guys more directly. So you're having a problem with my mouth rig, and your job that you're trying to get done is much more time sensitive than, say, a student who's just playing around. So really that's what it's about. It's, nothing's locked down. There's no DRM. Everybody gets the same files. The idea is if you're a studio or a small business or an individual freelancer and you want more support, this is a way for me to give that to you. So that's why there's 2 versions.
So check out Kitestring. You can either jump there by going onto Moto, hitting F1, clicking on the magnet deformer or something like that. You'll see how this is structured. You can also go to the URL, which is in the description and also in the chat, and we'll put it on the Pixel Fondue page as well, and check it out that way, especially if you're interested in Rigging Master Course 1, 2, 3. Is that available right now? Can you go buy that right now? It is right now.
We flipped the switch. Yeah, we flipped the switch at 1 a.m. and we already have customers. Obviously, people have been excited about this.
Right.
I haven't said anything to anybody.
So if you go buy Rigging Master Course 3 right now, you get all those assets, like tons of scenes, whatever, all that stuff. But you're also on Kitestring for like a year. You just get it. It comes with it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
And everything that comes with that. And so keeping your eye on that, it's an evolving platform. You're going to see Williams Vaughn's stuff move on there. You're going to see Brian Tyndall's book move on there. You're going to see a full body rig. You're saying a full body rig later this year?
I'm saying that before the end of the year, if you're a Kitestream subscriber, you'll be able to hit a button and download a character, fit it into your scene, and start animating.
Okay, there you go. if that's not that's motivation for me.
Right. Well, and if you're original RMC owner, I want to take care of all my customers that have bought that original content. Down at the very bottom of the site, you'll see it'll say an original, Rigging Master Course owner. Click that, put in your name. So basically, you put your first and last name, your current email address, and you can optionally the email address you used to sign up with the Rigging course way back. We'll do a verification and then send you an email with a link so that you can get it at 50% off. So I really want to take care of everybody that took care of me. So this is the ability to get people to do that. And everybody gets a 20% discount in this first 30 days. So, it's like, take a chance, download these files, get access, give me feedback so we can refine it and we're off cases.
As Rich gets more excited, his video starts to fade off a little bit. So,
are you hearing me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you. So yes, get on there, check it out. I just want to.
Are you there, Greg?
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. You're good. So I just got your video. You're frozen. So okay.
Hear you.
So right. So I know we're moving up on over an hour here, and people got stuff to do. So just last couple things, Shane. There's some questions and some interest in continuing Moto's integration with being able to load up CAD files. This is very, very important for my work, for instance. Something people will be interested in product rendering and the new renderer coming out. Are we going to be able to continue to get the IntegrityWare plugins from Foundry and have SolidWorks support?
The power translator is still available through our store. And that's an area that is on the roadmap to continue to work on and improve as well. So nothing of specific to mention right now, but definitely an area of interest for us as well.
And Matt, one of the other types of performance improvements is what we call the mini item performance improvement. So when you have very complex CAD files come in with thousands of items, that's a different type of improvement. That's also something on your list, presumably.
Yeah, definitely. So some of the things that we're aware of is many items, also just performance improvements around shader tree and around procedurals. They're all things that we're looking at and will continue to look at. 13.1 is the first step of many. So we'll continue to iterate and improve on that. But yeah, there's more work that can be done around the many item problem.
Excellent. Okay, so there's a couple other questions out there. I know there's been a steady improvement in animation features, and somebody's talking about NOA. I think that's probably pretty confirmed that that's coming. Right, Shane? We're building towards that with actions.
We're building towards that with
layered actions.
And layered actions that we added in 12.2 and 13.0, I think is where those came in. It's all a blur behind me. It's only clear going forward. That's
there. So
we are working on to drop a little bomb on you. We've been working very closely with Rich and Lukash and Sergio Machino on a new IK solver.
Nice.
That's in development as well. That'll probably happen before nonlinear animation. We think that's a much more of a higher requested thing and more versatile than just NLA itself.
Full body rig. Full body rig.
It's also clear to me now. All right. So we got a new IK solver coming along. UV. There's always some UV improvements and fixes and additions to all these versions of Moto. Greg, when you packing UVs into holes, is that a possibility coming up? Somebody had asked that.
He's muted. I can't hear him.
Oh, he's muted.
Your headset's muted.
Oh, Shane. Okay, Greg, you're in timeout. Yeah. Okay. I can't. It's not me, right? It's him. So UV pack fill holes. I know Houdini showed an interesting feature where they were, holes were actually that UV
Oh, did they? I
spaces
haven't seen that yet. I'll definitely check that out.
utilized as well. Greg's still talking to nobody. It's all right.
Yeah.
This is what happens an hour or so in. We lose some of this stuff. So, I think anything else we want to bring up before we run here? Rich, Shane?
Well, one other thing that's really super cool in this release that I like that you should definitely pay attention to is what's going on with Mesh Fusion. And there's a particular new feature. Fusion curves are using curve items as fusion items inside of Mesh Fusion. I think it's a game changer in how you do typical Boolean modeling. You can actually leverage the power of curves and creating fusion strips directly where you want them to be, instead of trying to figure out what type of inset or cutter object would need to be constructed to put that curve on that surface. So super cool. I think it'll really change kind of the game a little bit on kind of polygonal Boolean modeling. It's another step forward in that evolution.
So I think there's a video on that up on the 13.1 release videos.
Yep.
And yeah, that is really cool because if you use Mesh Fusion, one of the really powerful aspects of Mesh Fusion is this sort of procedural strip building, which is sort of intersections between these cutters, and being able to adjust sort of the chamfer or bevel between these different all these strip items, but using a curve to guide where you want these strips to be is really just more power to the modeler. And
we're starting to flip that paradigm a little bit. It used to be where the solids depicted where those strips, resulted, and the strips had power themselves. But now you can more directly construct the surface based on the strips, if you will. We're getting closer to that, at least.
That's a cool one. Somebody asked about CryptoMat support. Seems to be a standard in the industry.
With the path tracer, things like CryptoMat, and with the light path expressions type stuff, CryptoMat would become more feasible for us, for sure.
So I would see CryptoMat as being some part of that. If you're interested in CryptoMat, both Octane for Moto and V-Ray for Moto both support CryptoMat. So if you need CryptoMat in Moto, you can get that right now.
Yep. Two great solutions there, too.
Yeah.
V-Ray has an amazing Rtx renderer that they showed at SIGGRAPH as well. So if you haven't seen that, I definitely encourage you to go to. I don't know if they're showing it on their site or not, but they showed it at NVIDIA's Limelight event and a few other things. It's really super cool.
Yeah, V-Ray Next is out for Moto right now as well. So
that's out too, yeah.
Yeah, and so I expect to see. It's been about a year since RTX was shown at SIGGRAPH in 2018. I think I bought my RTX cards like a week later, so I'm waiting some RTX support.
There was a lot shown at SIGGRAPH. I was actually surprised. I mean, I thought we hadn't seen a lot leading into SIGGRAPH, to be honest. But when we went to Limelight and we took part in that event, that room was full of vendors. There must have been, 20, 30 vendors in there showing different tools and capabilities leveraging the RTX hardware.
Well, that's really encouraging to hear and super exciting. So I think we're going to move on. I think we've been on for a little over, about an hour and a half or so. So we had a lot of information, a lot of Moto 13.1 stuff, quite a bit about the new path tracing renderer that's going to be coming. If you're just joined late, that's earlier in the stream, which will be going up shortly. A lot about Kitestring and Rigging Master Course 3. And Rich will be all over Slack and the forums and everywhere guiding people on that. Met Michael. Still awake over there in Boston. There he is.
Awake, yep.
He's there.
Absolutely.
Very good. And Greg toiling away in Texas. And say goodbye to Matt over across the pond. Still light out there. What times it get dark over there?
I know, it's shocking.
It's about 9 at night. It gets dark, so a few hours.
Few hours yet. Okay. All right. Shane, enjoy your time in Portland. And we are off. So we will put this up and then check out 13.1, pull it down, and check out Kitestring. All right.
Download now.
And
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
we
everyone.
are out as soon as I figure out how to stop streaming.